Hi, I'm Jonathan. I'm the Director of Academics for Manhattan Prep. We teach test prep classes. We've been doing this online for over 10 years and in Zoom for the past 2 years. We made this video series to share with you some of our favorite tips from teaching online. Hope you enjoy.
Hi, my name is Whitney, and I'm a GMAT and GRE instructor at Manhattan Prep. And for the last about 12 years, I have almost exclusively taught and tutored in the online environment, and I absolutely love it. Believe me, I was skeptical as well about whether the online environment could provide the same sort of interactions that an in-person classroom could. And for the longest time, it really couldn't. There wasn't the technology and there wasn't the internet capability. But things have come a long way. And in many ways, the online environment is a really great alternative to the in-person classroom. And in some ways, I think it's even better. But I'll be honest, even if the tools are great, there is still the valid concern of getting your participants to participate. There's a lot of competition for their attention when they're in their own home environment. So things happening around the house, or even just other browser windows. You're going to have to be pretty intentional about how you foster a sense of engagement and connectedness with all of the students in your room. I'll say that probably the most important thing that you can do to foster connectedness in an online setting is to act like a real, normal human, having real, normal conversations. And I know that that sounds simple enough, like just go be yourself. But that's a lot harder than it sounds. Often when we're being recorded or in this online space, we get a little robotic. So I always recommend that people start with friends and family. Invite them into the online classroom space that you'll be using. Think about presenting some information about maybe a book or a TV show or a hobby that you enjoy. Practice calling on them. Think about fielding questions and just practice interacting in more natural ways. Don't forget that natural communication involves a lot of facial expressions, gesturing, and just physical cues in general. And so maybe you let yourself nod along, or you lean back to kind of think when someone is asking you a question. If you're a person who gestures a lot like I do, then you'll want to make sure that you're sitting far enough away from the camera so that your hand gestures can be picked up comfortably. And in fact, I like that extra space. It allows me to lean out. It allows me to lean in as if I'm thinking a little bit more closely. And then if you're a person who likes to stand, then set up your desk so that you can stand and move a little bit more comfortably. And finally, it can be helpful to practice speaking a bit more slowly when you're in an online classroom. And this is really important for someone like me who talks relatively quickly. I like to give myself a reminder to take a deep breath. In fact, I keep a Post-it right up by my camera that says the word breathe really big. And occasionally I'll stop and have all of us in the room do it, right? Just like... Right, we can all kind of stand to have a little bit more space like that. And then just remember that your students are going to take their emotional cues from you. And so the more comfortable you feel, the more you're going to invite them to feel just as comfortable in this space as well. So getting your student on camera. This is probably the most valid concern with online teaching, that students really are going to be as reluctant to be on camera as you probably were when you were first getting comfortable. And so again, you're going to have to be really creative with how you push students to be willing to turn on their camera and then speak to a room just as you would in a normal classroom. It's just that when a camera is sort of pointed at them, it can be even more intimidating. So my motto is to get them on camera early and then create as many opportunities to keep them on camera as possible.
So one of my favorite tools for getting students on camera is the breakout room option in Zoom. And so breakout rooms are a way to split your class into smaller groups. I recommend groups of 3 or 4. If your class is entirely a group of 3 or 4, it's still useful to send them all into one breakout room. It can facilitate communication to not have you just sort of staring over their shoulder, waiting for them to respond. So once you decide that you want to send a group into breakout rooms, you can decide how many rooms you want, and it'll automatically tell you how many participants would be in that room. You can choose automatic, which will just randomly sort your class members, or you can use manual. Once you're in automatic though, you will have the option, if you'd like, to sort where you want your students to go. So you could start with automatic and then make some changes. So for example, I'm going to create this breakout room, but because I only have 4 members, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and move them all into one. So I can choose like my move to or exchange. Once I've got my breakout room set up, I like to tell my students that I'm about to open the room. I give them very detailed instructions about what they're going to do in that room, because there isn't really a lot of option for back and forth communication once they're there. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and send you into this breakout room. You guys are going to spend a little bit of time just saying hello, get to know one another. Then I'd like you to review the question that we just completed, compare your answers, and talk a little bit about how you got to your solution before you come back. We're going to spend about 8 minutes in the group, so I'm going to have you come back at about 5 after. Once you're there, if you need anything, you can always request help from me using the help button there, and then I'll drop into the room to give you a hand. At the end, I'll call everybody back and close the rooms down, and I'll see you shortly. Yeah. Okay, so I'll go ahead and open. Once the rooms are open, you'll see that students can then begin to move, and so they'll start to disappear from your list, and they'll begin to highlight in the additional breakout room. So you'll see their names show up there. I can send a message to everyone. So I can tell them how much time there is left. I have the option of joining the room directly if I'd like, but if the students have immediate help that they need, they can send me an alert that says that they need help. If it's time to start calling people back, I'll use the breakout room option and hit close all rooms. That will then give me an alert that all breakout rooms will close in 60 seconds. If students want to come back early from that, they can. But at the end of that 60 seconds, all rooms will shut down. You'd have the option to recreate rooms if you'd like, or just continue to open and then close the same rooms over and over again. One of the final things that I really love about breakout rooms is that it gives students a chance to interact with one another and feel a little bit more at ease being on camera in front of at least a couple of the other people in class. And so I often find that my students who are really reluctant to be on camera, once they've been in a breakout room and they come back out of the breakout room, they're on camera and tend to stay there. So it's a really nice tool without having to pester someone to consistently turn on their camera.
And just like you would in an in-person classroom, you can use these same small group activities to focus on content from class, but you could also use it to foster these small group communications. Maybe you just have them tell each other about their hobbies as a way to get them communicating. Let these small groups take on that second role of creating a connectedness between the students in your room.
So once you have your students on camera, it's a good idea to use frequent check-ins to keep them on camera. So one way to do that is asking questions that require a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So guys, how much fun are you having making your instruction videos? Nice. And I also have an icebreaker that can be kind of silly, but it's a useful way to get people to utilize their camera. So guys, you have 30 seconds. I want you to draw your favorite animal, and then we all have to guess. All right, so start to wrap up your drawings. All right, hold them up to your cameras. Let's see. Let's see these beautiful works of art. Wait, Jeff, you gotta hold yours up a little bit higher. Keep going. What did you write on there?
I don't want to give away what it is.
It's a dog cat. Lizard! Very nice. You can still use activities like the thumbs up, even if not all of your students are on camera. There's a reactions option at the bottom of their window that will allow them to give you a thumbs up or clap along. So for example, all right, guys, give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Very nice. Right? So I can see that thumbs up even for students who aren't on video. Students can even communicate with you in the participants window by choosing things like polling in a yes or no. They can even raise their hand to let you know that they have a question. And a hand pops up, for example, next to Jeff's name. I can lower that manually, or students can lower it themselves. And then I could ask for polls. So guys, let me know yes or no in the participants window. Have you been to the Grand Canyon before? Once everyone's pulled in, I can see a count at the bottom of how many chose each response, and I can also clear those responses. And there's one final option that can be really nice for students who aren't on camera. If you go under the More option, you'll see that they have an ability to let you know that they're away, so you know not to call on them or interact directly.
The last piece of advice here is to get okay with the fact that some students are never going to get on camera. And in fact, they may not even have a webcam. And so you're just going to have to get comfortable with that. Maybe over the course of a single class or even several sessions, they'll see how much more engaged the other students are by being on camera. And hopefully it'll convince them to go out and get a webcam, or maybe just be brave enough to turn the camera on for one of the activities. So here's the good news. As you get more comfortable on camera and you get them more comfortable on camera, those interactions are going to naturally build a better sense of engagement and connectedness between the participants in your room. To take that connection a step further, you can actually lean in on a lot of the techniques that you use in a standard classroom. Two of the most popular, most common would be group work and cold calling. So we've already talked about group work quite a bit, and a lot of programs in Zoom especially have phenomenal small group breakout sessions. And so you'll want to lean in on those early, and then you'll also want to try and utilize those as frequently as possible. Keep students involved throughout the class talking to one another. As for cold calling, it is a great move to keep people paying attention, but just note that it can be a little more intimidating in an online setting. For Zoom, particularly, when a person starts to talk, their video is often centered, and so that can kind of create a little bit more anxiety around being under the spotlight. So I have two methods for cold calling that I've adopted to help me deal with some of that added anxiety of the online space. One of those is cold calling with a warning. And basically what this is that I tell my students that I'm going to cold call them, but then I tell them what I'm going to cold call them about and give them time to think about it. So for example, I might say, hey guys, we're going to address why answer choice B is wrong. And I'm going to call on one of you to help me. So take about 30 seconds to craft a response in case you're the one that I call on. This gives people a chance to think about what they're going to say and be ready to be on camera. And maybe that saying their name isn't quite as jarring. The second one I use is that I use my early cold calling for what I call all answers are correct cold calls. And this is the time where you would ask somebody for a completely experiential response. So which of these questions that we just did was the hardest? Or what was the most interesting thing that you learned from the homework this last week? Or what do you have on your agenda for this afternoon, right? Things where the student doesn't have to have a right answer and they're not being graded on their response can be a way to get people comfortable with hearing their names and having to respond on camera right away.
So you've got group work and you've got cold calling, but there's actually a really amazing tool in online teaching that isn't available in a traditional classroom, and that's the chat window. And most programs and Zoom have a private chat that will allow you to poll your students and get responses without them sharing them broadly in the class or you having to cold call. So guys, send me privately, what did you have for breakfast this morning? Some of you are very healthy. Logan, I am feeling you on donuts. This is also a great feature if students have questions that they want to ask without maybe feeling embarrassed or like they need to interrupt the flow of class in order to ask you. Oh, that's okay that you're a little confused. I bet some other people want to know the answer to that as well. Anybody know what the volume of a cylinder is? Nice, Jill. And so this is a really great function that you can utilize for all sorts of purposes in class.
Private chat also allows you to poll the room widely, get answers from everyone without having them influence one another beforehand. And private chat is also a great way to get your shy students on board. This is one of the things with online instruction that can be hard. It can be easy to lose people, especially as the classroom gets bigger or as people choose not to be on camera. And so I'll use the chat window and the private chat function to reach out to these quiet students. I like to keep just sort of a simple spreadsheet of the students in a room and kind of mark off how often I'm hearing from people just to make sure that all of the voices are being represented. And I'll even drop in on breakout rooms just to try and see if I can foster some communication with the shyer students in that space as well. So see, all of the tools that you would be using in your physical classroom absolutely work online. And in fact, you have a little bit more flexibility in the online space to get your students involved. Look, if you've decided to take on online teaching, either by choice or because the circumstances demanded it, then pat yourself on the back. You are stepping out of your comfort zone and you should be proud. Now, it's going to feel awkward at first and maybe a lot awkward, but that's okay. I cannot imagine that you felt immediately comfortable the first time you stepped in front of students in a physical classroom. Trust that all of the tools that you've been building as a classroom teacher are absolutely going to translate into the online environment. And in fact, you'll even have a few additional tools available. You will become more comfortable. And as you become comfortable, you'll be offering your students a chance to find that same sense of ease. And I believe that before long, you will be just as enamored with the online classroom as I am. So good luck out there. You've got this.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out our other videos, you'll see them in the list below. Feel free to also reach out to us at the email address in the description to this video if you are interested in more direct guidance about how to teach online.